Hi, everyone. This is Jordana Boruchov from Drink It In _ Jordana. And I am here with Rabbi Manis Friedman for season number 5. This season, I've been interviewing different therapists, life coaches, and I am super excited. And I must say, super nervous. I was just telling Rabbi Friedman to interview Rabbi Friedman, such a personality, such wisdom. To be in your presence does make me a bit nervous. Not many things make me nervous. So there you go, Rabbi Friedman. But without further ado, Rabbi Friedman, can you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from, where you live now, and basically how you got into this career of yours.
Okay, let's see. I was born in Prague in what used to be Czechoslovakia.
Mm,
Now it's just Czech Republic.
okay.
That was right after the war. It was a DP camp. So we didn't really live there. We were just passing through on our way to the United States. And we got involved with Chabad. We became Chabad Chassidim. And when I got married, my wife and I moved to Minnesota to be on Shlichus. We opened a women's program, a crash course on Judaism for women of all ages. It was wild and crazy back in the 70s. It's been going ever since. So we must have had about 30,000 women coming through.
Mm.
And that's an education for anybody.
Mm.
So the main topic, of course, always came back to family, marriage, divorce, mothers and daughters. And so that was my education. I ended up writing a few books on the subject of intimacy and relationships and so on. So this is where we stand now, when the world is really, really interested in healthy relationships and rediscovering intimacy, finding out why we're alive in the first place, subjects like that. Light
Wow.
stuff.
Well, just a little bit like so it's like as if you like learned on the job, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's unbelievable. And it's still going on. You still have that.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Such a legacy to, I know I've been teaching for, this is my 27th year. And when I think about all the students that I've touched over the years, it's just enormous. And when you put it like that number, when you say that 30,000, it's truly it's a blessing. It really is to know that you've impacted and made a difference on all those lives. Now transition to it now we're social media world, right? So on the one hand, back then in the 70s, you were saying it was, face to face, you were interacting. Now, like, you go on YouTube, Rabbi Friedman, you're like you're massively huge. First of all, I must say, from a teacher standpoint, your method of talking is unbelievable. I would say the presentation that you give up, besides the knowledge, but you're easy to listen to, and people would want to listen to. It's the way you give it over, I find amazing. Did that also come with time on how to deliver the message?
I have no idea. I
It
have
just
no idea. I don't know of any method or any style or any. We just talk.
just talk,
Can we talk?
right?
We talk. It's not preaching, it's not quoting, it's talking.
Right.
Like, I haven't prepared a speech in 50 years.
Wow.
Because the one time I tried to prepare a speech, it was a disaster.
So
You know,
yeah, go on.
you go to yeshiva for 10, 12, 14 years, and then you have to prepare a speech, but you still have nothing to say after 14 years. Come on. Just
Right,
say what you know.
right. Yeah.
I'm sure you do that too.
Yes, yes. I mean, honestly, I do prepare a little bit. I do
Well,
prepare,
that's because you're a professional.
no, it calms me, but for sure, it's not preparing. There are people that definitely prepare word for word. I'm not preparing word for word. There are points, that I want to get across. And I do also have a sense of, before, I don't know about you, before I speak before a crowd, I do pray a little bit. I take out a Tehillim and I try to say one paragraph of Tehillim, and I always say that Hashem just put the right words in my mouth to give over what the people have to hear, or whatever words I say, please let them hear what they need to hear. And somebody hopefully gets something out of it that is helpful to them. So, because sometimes, just things come out.
That's very nice.
Yeah, that's why I try to do that. So now with social media, how's that transition for you?
Oh, social media, you can talk to 30,000 people at the same time at
Yeah,
one time. Yeah, it's amazing. The internet has been the biggest blessing in recent history. No, no exaggeration.
right.
And here we thought it was the biggest curse and it's going to destroy us and the world is going to come to an end over it. Like, such an amazing.
Cool. That's how I see it. Yeah, it has to be used right, just like anything else. I think some people don't get that. One of my sons went to a yeshiva called Waterbury. I don't know if you've ever heard of Waterbury with Rabbi Kalish. And one of his ways of thinking is saying, stop trying to tell your kids to disconnect from all their devices. Just teach them how to connect to God, because you're not going to win that battle of disconnecting from social media, from the internet. It's here to stay. But if we educate our kids to connect to Judaism, then you've given them a gift. So yeah. So what?
How true, how true.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of his words are very true. Yes. Now, when you started with the social media, were you like worried, concerned? Did you have certain goals? You just said, or just like you said now, you don't prepare a speech and you just talk. But like, how did it go for you?
Just talk. But, if you're sitting in a room and talking, why not open it up and let everybody hear?
Right, right. Just let people listen.
Yeah. And if you're afraid that people are going to hear what you say, then you shouldn't be saying.
Right. Yeah, definitely not. Now, I wanted to go to the writing. What I know I definitely read the book. I even have like little markings for your new book, Creating a Life That Matters. So whoever hasn't read it yet, please go ahead and purchase it and read it. But you had mentioned there were other books that you read. How long ago was it that you wrote your first book, and what was that like, that process?
The first book came out in 1990. That was like a millennium ago. Feels like it anyway.
Right, yeah.
It's such a different world back then.
Mm.
But it was published by Harper, which is a major publishing house. It was on the theme in general was tznius,
Modesty.
but we called it relationships,
Okay.
and it was very well received because they actually gave out a soft cover. First they print the hardcover. If
Mhm.
that sells, then they give out a soft cover. So they did put out a soft cover, and then we bought the copyright, and we've reprinted it about 9 times. So
Wow.
it's called "Doesn't Anyone Blush Anymore?"
More. Right.
It was
Yes.
a good title. It worked, but it was one of the women who was sitting in the class and listening who decided that it's a topic that people need to hear
Mm.
beyond the classroom. So she edited it and she put it together. And I was in California and I spoke about tznius. And I didn't know that the vice president of Harper was sitting in the audience. And he said afterwards, he said, if you can talk about modesty in the hot tub capital of the United States, you should write a book and I'll publish it. So,
Wow. And how long did it take you to write that book?
so actually, I didn't do the actual writing,
Oh, okay.
but we sat and we edited and it took almost a year.
Right.
The new book took almost 3 years.
Wow.
It's 400 pages, a lot of
Yes.
stuff there.
It's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff there. So is that typical? Like, is it, because I know some people have that their classes or their lectures are then transcribed into writing. Is that typical of what probably you're saying was your process?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't sit down to write from scratch. But
Right. Mm-hmm.
the thing is that when most writers,
Mm-hmm.
most books take a few years to write.
Right.
The problem is that by the time you finish writing, a lot of the stuff you're putting in there has become irrelevant or dated.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to write with the awareness that this is going to be read in 4 years from now.
Right.
So you can't make reference to popular current events because they'll be forgotten in 4 years. Nobody will know what you're talking about.
Right.
But when you're talking about tighter subjects, it's never going to get old. So it's safe.
Yeah. I know it's something that I deep down inside, there are certain things that you want to do in your life. So it happens to be writing a book is one of my things that I still yet want to do. So I find it fascinating when I do speak to people and they have written a book. So I like to understand the process and how they go about it. And I do writings here and there, and I write articles, and I find it very therapeutic when I put my thoughts down on paper. I remember my son, he learns in a yeshiva in Cleveland, Chafetz Chaim in Cleveland. So he was home for Sukkot. And he came back and he's talking to me about something that the rabbi in the shul said. It was about Cain and Hevel, and talking about looking at them from one is representing the intellect and one is representing the emotions. And I just found it fascinating. I was like, so we were just talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this conversation, I have to put it down on paper. And that's what I did. And it got into the newspaper, but I found it just felt good. It's like, I don't know, it's like when I was younger and I took a test and you studied and studied and studied, and then you wrote all the information down. And after you wrote that information on the test, okay, it's out my system. Okay. It's like, it's out. Do you have that sense of relief when you see a book out?
I don't put in that much work.
Oh,
So it's not like a relief from the work.
right.
But yes, it feels very good that we're letting the world know, and who knows who's going to read it and where the book is going to end up. It's fascinating.
Right. Whose hand?
But everybody says if you want to write a book, you set aside 2 hours a day.
Mm.
During those 2 hours, you have to write, not sit and dream. Write. The next day, you read the last paragraph of what you wrote yesterday, and you pick up from there and you write.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be good. You don't even look at what you're, don't even, give it a second. Just keep on writing.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get into the discipline of 2 hours of writing, everything will come together.
Mm.
But don't try to produce a book every day. Okay, today I'm going to write a book. No, you're not going to write a book. You're going to write down a thought, a chapter, not a book.
Right. Mm. I like that advice. Very good advice. Thank you.
Because it becomes intimidating.
Yes, it is. And it becomes overwhelming
Yeah.
to the point. Yes, 100%. Now, did you have certain goals in mind? Like when you said you started that organization with your wife, or now I assume you counsel still. Do you still do the private counseling and everything? How many years have you been doing that?
60.
Wow. 60 years? Private counseling?
Yeah, I started when I was a teenager.
Okay. So, Who'd you counsel when you were a teenager? I got to hear this one. Okay, let's go.
I began public speaking when I was a teenager.
Really?
Yeah.
Where was like the first places that you spoke?
The New York area, New York,
Mm-hmm.
New Jersey, Connecticut. There are different organizations wanted to know more about Hasidim.
Mm-hmm.
There was a fascination, like so they would ask the uh, the central organization here to send them a speaker to tell them a little bit about, right. And it was very informal. They didn't have to have a great, well-known personality. So if a teenager felt that he's willing to speak, they would send. So I was one of those, and people would ask questions, and it's amazing that parents, grandparents would not hesitate to ask me advice how to raise their kids and how to make their marriage work. And I'm like,
You know,
not speaking from experience,
right.
but from what it's written, I can tell you this, that, the other. So yeah, I started giving marital advice and family advice. I was 17.
Wow. 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 I mean, I would think probably, well, first of all, people have a sense, I find, of other people, and they could sense who probably can give, or who's giving sincere advice, who's talking from their heart, who's, talking real to them authentically. So that's probably what it comes across when you speak, Rabbi Friedman. Um, but I also probably, if someone's raised in a certain home, that is your experience. So on the one hand, I don't know, it's not anyone's business, but let's say from your parents, how they raised you, that would have given you that experience, I guess. And then I don't know, how many siblings do you have? How many siblings?
7.
Seven. You're one of seven, or you have seven?
One of 8.
You're one of eight. So there you go. That's a lot of siblings, and interactions and things like that. So that definitely also gives someone tremendous life experience. I
That's for
think
sure.
that's for sure. But I still want to know, who did it when you were a teenager? Was just adults, or also like you felt like you were always the go-to person from your friends? There's sometimes people are drawn, like, I think one of my daughters has that, and she says, everyone in my class is always asking me advice, Ima, you know. And did you find that? Is that also what you found? Like, through your friends, you were the one that would give advice? No.
Nope, my friends were much smarter than me, much more mature than me. No, I would definitely not. And that's why when I finally did get into it, it was like such a surprise to everybody. I, I
Wow.
was the quiet and shy one.
Mm. So you were the one soaking everything in. You were watching.
Aha! Plagiarized everything.
You were very careful. You were the one to everyone should watch out for. The fly on the wall. Um, what have you found any obstacles or challenges in being a therapist or dealing with people, where they're like some people say it's hard to be a therapist sometimes because you take your work with you, and it you feel other people's pain, and it's hard to like shut it down. What did you find? Anything? Were there any other challenges? That challenge? Anything?
Not particularly that one, except in the last 2 years, starting to become a little heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So I go travel a little bit and get away.
Mm-hmm.
But the real challenge, I think, in public service
Mm-hmm.
is the tendency to want to be right. It's a terrible handicap.
Mm-hmm.
The need to be right gets in the way of everything. So that's what I tell everybody. If you want to be married happily, don't need to be right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a It's a natural instinct that you have to fight against all the time. Don't be right. Don't win the argument.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not helpful anymore. You're competing. People don't need competition. So very often when a husband says, I know exactly what is wrong and I know exactly what I need to do in my marriage to make my wife happy, it's just that haven't done it yet. Or she doesn't let me or whatever. And you're very tempted to say, that's a rather arrogant position to take. Maybe you're not right. And then it starts a whole battle of wits and will, and not helpful.
Right.
So you have to let people think that they are right. Then they trust you.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can make little suggestions on how they can improve.
Right.
But this is the problem in all of life, the need to be right.
So like the ego, I guess, would you say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's the ego where people are egotistical about their looks, about their position in society, all sorts of things that your ego can get hung up on. But I
Right.
think the most, maybe the nastiest, is the one of the need to be right,
Mm-hmm.
because that's directly competitive, leaves no room for the other person.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the best looking. You can be second best, but if I'm right, you have to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a fight to the finish. Like there's
I,
no silver medal or bronze medal.
mm.
It's nasty. It's nasty.
I remember when I was a younger girl, I went to a class and this rabbi was also talking about something similar to what you're saying. He said, if you're driving in a car and there's a truck on the road and you have the right of way, but the truck is still going, you don't say, but I'm right, because you know what's going to happen? You're dead. Because the truck is bigger than you and the truck is just going to ram right into you. So in life, sometimes, like you said, it's not about being right because it just doesn't always work.
Yeah.
So,
And marriages for sure.
right.
The need to be right prevents you from merging, from becoming one, from bonding. It really keeps, puts up that big wall between spouses.
Right.
And it's not even competing to be right. It's just the need to be right.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't fight about it, but in your own mind, I'm right. That creates such distance and coldness.
Mm-hmm.
So the mind should never get in the way of the heart.
So you're saying even not even now in reference to marriage, but you said as a speaker, when you give over a message, also you should have that mindset that you're not always right. I mean, I do that as a teacher. It's like the ego gets in the way. You want to present things in a certain way that you're giving over this information.
So what complicates it somewhat is that if you're not sure you're right, why are you talking?
Right.
Right? So it's like you got to be absolutely confident that what you're saying is right and have no need to be right.
Uh-huh. That's challenging.
Yeah. So if you're not confident in what you're saying, it's not going to work. And if you have to win every argument, it's not going to work.
Right.
So it's a balancing act there.
That's on the tightrope. So out of everything, yeah, I'm sorry, go on. Yeah, I'm
You have
sorry.
to say, it's right, not
Ah,
I'm right.
I like that.
And it's right because it's not my opinion.
Right.
If it were my opinion, it might not be right.
Right. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. Detaching from it a little bit. When we talk about nowadays, it's a very big word is what are you passionate about? So out of everything that you've accomplished so far in all your areas, whether it be the books that you write or the counseling or the public speaking or anything that I also might not know about, what are you the most passionate about in what you do?
My grandchildren.
Oh, that's so nice. It's so special. It is a big blessing. I have three
Oh,
of my
yeah.
own, so I get that. It's such a blessing. It really is. That's so nice. Do you have some that live near you? Okay, because I'm assuming you have children all over.
So I happen to be in New York right now,
Okay.
and all the kids from all over the country come to yeshiva to Beis Rivka to New York.
Uh,
So on Shabbos we have 22 grandchildren around the table.
oh, that's so special. It's really very, very nice. It's really very wonderful.
So here's a piece of wisdom
Okay.
that I am sure is right.
Okay.
If you raise your children, then you can spoil your grandchildren.
Okay.
But if you spoil your children, you're going to have to raise your grandchildren.
Mm, ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
my my mother also used to give me a lot of wisdom. I remember one time when my oldest, well, she was a young girl, but she understood already. And we were in my parents' home, and she had a cup of Cheerios, no milk, just a cup of Cheerios, and she just spilled it out onto the couch. And right away I was like, "Oh, don't worry, Mom, I'm gonna clean it up." She says, "Yeah, why are you gonna clean it up? She could clean it up." She says, "Remember this, Jordana?" I'm like, "Oh no." She's like, "It's always easier not to discipline now, but it's going to come back and bite you later." So then I was like, "Okay, Adina, clean up." But yeah, wisdom. That's what I'm talking about from before, that if you were raised in a certain home, you didn't need to have that formal education of how to be a therapist, how to guide people in a proper relationship, right? That's the thing we always talk about. There, you don't, now we have courses for parenting and marriage 100%. But as we get older, that's that famous thing. You need a driver's license to drive a car, but there's no course that you have to take that would allow you to be married or give you permission to become a parent. It's just something that everyone does, and we have to pray for that it's all going to work out. So I know,
And for some reason today, unlike when we were growing up, you don't have the right to make any mistakes anymore.
mm,
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but definitely a difference. In the olden days, parents made mistakes, and the kids put up with it because that's life.
right.
Today, you don't get to make any mistakes. You have to be perfect, and of course, nobody is perfect. So there's nothing but anxiety and stress and misery
Yeah.
because I don't know, the need to be flawless, impeccable. You can't make any mistakes because psychological damage. And so people become hypersensitive, and a microaggression knocks you out for a week. It is not wise. It's too mechanical.
Mm.
You raise children looking up, holding a book in one hand and telling the kid what to do and looking up on the next. Oh, you don't want to do that? Okay, page 16.
Yeah, it doesn't come across natural, I guess. So when I look at my kids, I'm proud of them, that the ones that are parents already, that they want to become better parents, right? And so I am. But I do have this argument with them constantly. And I think I did it, I hope, I've changed things up from my parents. As long as I think hopefully we just improve a little bit, and don't go
A little
backwards.
bit, a little
A
bit.
little, right. And don't go backwards. Now, what is your favorite part of this book? Like, is there like a chapter that you love the best or something that really speaks to you the most out of anything?
Hard to say.
It's hard to say.
But I think that for the observant crowd,
Hmm.
I think the discussion about our relationship with God is crucial because it is neglected in the schools.
Hmm.
You come away with a vague notion of God, but a lot of laws and do's and don'ts and punishments and rewards and who are you serving? Who is all this about? I don't know. I don't know. He's mysterious. I don't know. It's not. That's not healthy.
Right.
You got a huge religion based on a tiny little concept. It's top heavy.
Mm.
So the slightest disturbance and disappointment, you throw the whole thing away.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's, again, my humble opinion from being a teacher for so many years and living life so far. It's a lack of an emotional connection. I find that children need more of that emotional connection to understand and to be accepting. I give this example a lot when I do my public speaking. I have two brothers. I'm the youngest of four. So I have two brothers. They're both older than me, but I call one the older brother and one the younger brother, even though they're both older than me. So the older brother, I used to think he was like my hero, like he could do no wrong. And my younger brother was the one that, you know, teased me all the time. I found annoying. And I remember one time, one of my brothers was standing behind me and he had his hands on my shoulders. And I thought for sure it was the younger one. And I was getting angry and angrier and angrier that he's touching my shoulders. And all of a sudden, I turn around to get really upset with him. I turn around and lo and behold, I see it's my older brother. And then I was like, oh, okay, no problem. And it was like a aha moment looking back that really taught me that it's all based on relationship. If I have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if I have a relationship with God, then, and it's a strong one, it's a nice one, it's a positive one, whatever he gives me, whatever comes my way, I could accept, but I could also accept it with love, with happiness. But if it's a relationship that I don't enjoy and I haven't worked on, then no matter what happens, it could be someone coming to give me a gift, but if I don't have that connection, it could really throw the whole thing off. So I think that's a little bit what you were saying, that there's that lack.
So the exciting new concept, I think it's new to almost everybody. We've always assumed that the human being, tiny, helpless, finite, always in need and always dependent. And that's reinforced 100 times a day. You can't do anything by yourself. Hashem has to help you. You have to ask, you have to beg, you have to plead, you have to do tshuva, you have to promise to be good, and then maybe you'll get what you need. God, on the other hand, is so perfect. He's so great. He's so high. He's so complete. He doesn't need anything. So you're the needy one. He needs nothing. Is it possible that Judaism is actually saying the exact opposite? Whoever created the world, the universe, doesn't need anything. You create a universe and you don't need anything. How does that make sense? On the other hand, you were created. You didn't ask to be, you didn't need to be. You were brought into the world with no needs. How did you become needy? It's the opposite. It really is the opposite. The Creator is needy, which is why He created a world. We are needed. We are not needy. Turns out that human beings get past all the psychology from Freud to Adler to Frankel, all of them. They missed it. We don't have needs. We are not needy because we don't need to be here. So all the agonizing search of why am I here? What is my purpose in life? Don't look to your needs because you don't have a need. You don't need to be here. You are not needy. You're dependent on food. It's not your need. That's how you were created. So stop with my needs. I need, I must, I have to. I don't have to anything. But my Creator is expecting something from me. So I am here to serve, to be needed, not to agonize over my needs. This is such a radical idea that it has to be true. It is so opposite of everything we ever, all human beings forever. We are needy, we are dependent. We have to be on our knees all the time, begging the Eberstedt to be nice to us, which is such a morbid view of life. Come to think of it, it's so pathetic. It makes God sound really bad. So as you were saying, it has to be a warm relationship. But if you think God doesn't need you at all, and you have to beg Him for everything, this is a warm, inviting relationship.
Yeah.
So you tell me God doesn't need you, but you should love Him with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. It's like an abusive relationship. I won't do anything for you, but you better love me. How? How do you love someone who doesn't care? Oh, yeah, he cares. He loves you. Yeah, but he doesn't need me. What in the world does that mean? He loves me, but he doesn't need me. Well, that sounds like a pet, right?
Yeah.
Everybody loves their pet. Nobody needs a pet. Human beings are not pets. We're not gerbils. So it turns out that a human being needs to be needed far more than he needs to be loved.
Mm.
So I was like, you have to need me. I can love myself, and I do. So I can't need myself.
Mm.
So somebody better need me.
Mm.
Love? I can love myself.
Mm. You know, I'm sorry, go on, yeah.
But we are intoxicated with love. Love is everything. Love, love. God is love. Life is love. Everything is love. All you need is love. It's so shallow and Hollywoodish. That we don't need more love. But we need to know that we're needed.
Right. 100%. You know, what I was going to say is that one of the things that I love to do is take concepts like something that you just said right now, Rabbi Friedman, about being needed. And I love to find an example in the Torah because everything's in the Torah. And I find that it's just a matter of, did you find it yet? Because it's there. So there's a story in the Torah that is so small that people skip, like go right over it. It's all 4 psukim. It's all 4 verses. It's in Sefer Bamidbar in Numbers. If I'm not mistaken, oh my gosh, I'm going to guess that it's in chapter 10. I'm just guessing right now. It's either chapter 10 or chapter 11. Right in the middle, when Moses asks Chovav, he asks him to journey with him to the land, and does it in 4 verses. He asks him twice. He asks him the first time, and he says, come with us to the land because it's going to be good for you. And if it's good for you, if it's good for us, it's good for you for sure. Right? The land is good. So Hashem promised us, so come. And he says, no, I'm going to go back to my land. And he asks him a second time, but he changes it up. He says again, come, because Hashem promises it's going to be good. But then he adds, because this is the only way you could convince somebody or get someone, he says, I want you to be our eyes because we need you. You need to be our guide. And that's an example of if he presents it in a way that he's needed, then hopefully Chovav would join on the journey to the land. So for me, that would be like a perfect example from the Torah where Moshe was trying to give over to his father-in-law that he's needed. So come along with us. And it had nothing to do with your own pleasures. That wasn't whether it was the land is good, not good. That wasn't doing it for him. But the point is, I need you and I need you to come. So that was just something that came to my head when you were talking about being needed.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you. But to end it off, thinking back on your career and everything, what would you say was your proudest moment? I know your grandchildren are important, but career-wise, what would you say was your proudest moment that you were like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like, oh, I'm so proud of myself.
It's a constant thing, seeing the light go on in people's eyes, like they come alive. Like Tchias HaMesim. You're talking to people and their eyes are dull and life is meaningless and they don't know what they're doing, and they hear something and all of a sudden it's like, ooh.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Like you're talking, I remember I heard you just recently. I was in, what was it? I think it was Elizabeth. There was a Farbrengen, and I came to see you and you spoke. And just sitting there in the audience and listening to you, I definitely can understand what you're saying because you definitely lit my brain up. Anytime I listen to you, my kids already know in the car, we're going to listen to Rabbi Friedman right now because it just brightens up my day to listen to your wisdom. And I want to thank you so much.
Do the kids
Huh?
listen?
Yeah, my kids listen with me. Yeah.
I'm always amazed about that. The kids quote what they hear. They quote it to their parents. They quote it to each other. Kids today are so advanced. They're so, I mean, we at that age.
I didn't listen to stuff like that. No.
So
I definitely did not. Yeah.
these are the children who are going to greet Mashiach.
Amen.
And they have what it takes.
Yes. Yes.
They're impressive.
They're impressive.
One of my grandsons asked me a question.
Yeah.
He's 8 years old. He asked me a question. I give him an answer. He's quiet for a moment, and then he says, do you have another answer that makes more sense?
So respectful. I love it. I love it. It's such a kind way. He spoke his mind and he's so kind. It's amazing. I had it one time many years ago. My youngest is now 12, but this is definitely, he might have been 7 also around that age. And there was a famous speaker was in town and he was speaking in our shul on a Friday night. And so we went as a family to go hear him speak. And I asked him afterwards, I said, so what did you think? And he said, Ima, he was definitely the best speaker I ever heard. But then again, I never heard you speak. That's a good one.
Can you imagine doing that when you were 7?
No.
They're so far ahead of us.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's great. It's great. Well, I want to just thank you, Rabbi Friedman. Thank you so much. If somebody wanted to contact you, if they had a question or they wanted to share a thought or whatever it might be, what would be the best way someone to contact you, Rabbi Friedman?
It's good to know.org.
It's good to know.org. So when I post this podcast, I definitely will put that there, the contact. I'll put information, a link maybe to purchase, also to purchase the book, which I suggest everyone should definitely take the time. It's definitely a read. You read. This is how I did it. I read, I processed. I read a little bit more. I processed because there's a lot of wisdom, and you should allow it to, as I would say, drink it in. So that's what I would say. But I want to thank you so much, Rabbi Friedman, for being here today. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. And Hatzlacha Rabba.
Amen. Amen.
Let's change the world for the better. That's it. That's the name of the game.
Yes, amen. Thank you. Thank you.